Hey y'all, welcome and welcome back to my channel. It's me, KiaSimone. Let's get into this Love and Marriage Huntsville Marriage Boot Camp edition where I am really ready for them to wrap up this whole retreat because I ain't come here to be in therapy with these people. I'm ready to go. Now, before we get into it, please be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe if you have not already. And of course, I have to take a second to give a shout out to my super thanksters. So thank you so much to Yvette Greer, Tanya Fuller, Lisa Simmons, Tyra Daniels, and Lisette. Thank y'all. I really appreciate y'all. So we pick right up in the middle of boot camp where we left off with Dr. Francis telling Tiffany and Lewis basically that they is fake and full of shit. Y'all know Lewis got a question, comment, rejection, God's protection for everything that is said to him. So his question to Dr. Francis is, are you saying that our marriage is an act? Well, Dr. Francis realizes that he is dealing with dodgeball champions. So he said, you know what? Let me choose my words carefully. He explains to Lewis and Tiffany that what he observed between them the previous morning raised questions about the quality of their interpersonal relationship. Now, of course, Lewis still ain't trying to hear that. And he's in the confessional talking about Dr. Francis has known us all of 24 hours and he's making all of these assumptions about our marriage. Who does he really think he is? That don't add up. How in the hell did you come on the scene barely into your second failing marriage with advice for everybody and their mama, certified by nothing but a Barnes and Noble receipt because you done read a couple philosophy books, and now you are above receiving advice from a certified practicing professional who is an expert in the field of marriage and relationship by way of education, experience, and credential. It don't add up. It does not add up. How you want to know who this man think he is to make these observations, not assumptions, about your relationship when you came in with all of your assumptions and not observations about everybody else's. I'm gonna need you to make it make sense because I was adding it up in the math as not mathing. Tiffany is in the confessional with him being his better disrespectful half, talking about, I don't know where Dr. Francis went to school or where he got his credentials, but I don't respect his opinion or his assumptions on who the Whitlows are. In this moment, it literally makes sense to me why these low-wit Whitlows are married. Y'all are both fundamentally disrespectful. Y'all are both the smartest people y'all know. I cannot deal with these people. They are so inauthentic and they are so steeped in it that they really think the problem is everybody else. They need more help than I got time for on a Saturday night. I can't. So we move on to the next morning. And Marcel is in the kitchen cooking breakfast for the group. Lewis comes in and Marcel calls himself making conversation by, yeah, that was kind of rough night last night, huh? Dr. Francis about kicked your ass, didn't he? You know, Lewis thinks he's a duck and don't nothing bother him. Everything rolls off his back. So, yeah, no, it wasn't that big a deal. Marcel said, oh, okay, cool. It wasn't that deep. All right, that means your ass still got room to get kicked. Come on here. So at this point, Tiffany has entered the kitchen and Marcel said, yeah, Dr. Francis said he knew y'all had a bad marriage from the second he laid eyes on y'all. Damn. Tiffany said, yeah, well, I didn't know that we were coming to a marriage retreat to be came at. Marcel said, yeah, that's pretty much how it goes. So now Tisha enters the chat. She comes in the kitchen picking off Marcel's plate, trying to make conversation. And she asks the Whitlows, you know, how do they think the day is going to go? And that just opens the door for their bullshit. Lewis gives some run-on sentence of an answer about how he's open to see what the day brings, but not really, because if you question your marriage when you go into things like this, it'll make you question everything else. So if you have some grounding, it'll just bring points out and it'll make you think. But am I just going to all of a sudden change and become a new person? Who was I before then? Was I really that great of a person? What in the Jack and Jill went up a hill prison letter author of confusion hell is you talking about, man? What? I do not know what he's talking about, and neither does he. This too far down the rabbit hole of bullshit for me, okay? And Tisha standing there just chewing the bacon, smiling and nodding. Yeah, because you know she used to just smiling and nodding through some bullshit. Marcel looking at him like, you so full of shit, you stinking up the damn place. And Tisha in the confessional said, it just seems like Lewis is not open to receiving any advice from Dr. Francis. You don't say. And Marcel is in PR mode about, I have my issues with couples therapy just like the next, but I'm open to the process and hearing what Dr. Francis has to say and, seeing what I can use. Marcel, you shut your ass up, okay? Because you is just hiding behind Lewis right now. Marcel is playing the go along to get along game, where I'm going to play to these cameras and I'm going to play to the audience and I'm going to act like, I'm into it because I'm tired of fighting with y'all on this internet, and I'm going to roll this man here right up under that same bus he was driving last year. Remember he was talking all that stuff about our marriages? Beep, beep, here I come. Well, Lewis heard the bus coming, and so he decided this was the perfect opportunity to apologize to Marcel and Tisha. He said, you know what, since y'all is here and we is here and Dr. Francis done got knee deep in my business and pissed me off, I think I should go ahead and apologize for getting knee deep in y'all's business last year, because now that, Dr. Francis came in here thinking he knows something, I know how y'all felt when I came in talking like I knew something, and so I just would like to apologize. Marcel said, oh, so now that Dr. Francis has pulled a Lewis on Lewis wants to apologize. Okay. Well, that ain't enough to keep me off your ass, okay? What I would like to know, while you are giving all these confessions and feeling vulnerable, how does it feel to be professionally diagnosed as fake? Well, before they can respond, backup arrives. Kimmy and Maurice come down. Well, Kimmy gets the day started by leading the tribe on confronting the Whitlows. Yeah, we got a problem. Y'all came in here last year with all these opinions and telling everyone how we needed to be transparent, and we weren't being transparent. And now we have a whole professional telling y'all are not transparent. Y'all need to be transparent. If y'all were so willing to give advice with no education or experience, why are y'all so close to receiving advice from a professional with years of education and experience? Help us understand. Lewis basically says he doesn't feel like it was fair for Dr. Francis to know them for all of 6 seconds and come to this conclusion that his marriage is a game. Kimmy had to remind him, but darling, you did the same thing to Marcel, so what the hell is you talking about? This leads them into a conversation of how Lewis is always dismissive in his tone. They will try to give him advice the same way that he's always offering advice, and his response is always, I hear you, I hear you, I hear you. He tries to clean it up and say that the I hear you is acknowledging what people are saying to him, but they explain to him, no, bruh, you're being condescending, and your I hear yous are get out my face. So now that they've addressed Lewis and his issue, now it's time to tackle Tiffany. So Kimmy brings up that Tiffany is basically dishonest, that she had a whole conversation with Tiffany at dinner about the having a baby subject. And she made it clear to Kimmy at dinner that Lewis absolutely did not want another baby. But then she sat in this group setting with Dr. Francis and pretended like the decision was up to Lewis, and Lewis is on the fence and he's wishy-washy. And basically it was dishonest because you told me something very, very different. Tiffany responds with some 1-2 buckle my shoe lie that did not make a damn bit of sense. She starts to explain that she has 2 different answers to the same question because it was 2 different conversations. Basically, she says, Kimmy and I were talking specifically about having a baby, whereas Dr. Francis was talking about, wanting to have a baby to hold on to someone and layers of things. So, girl, what? At this point, they'd had to remind me I'm getting a paycheck to have this conversation, because people who don't even think before they lie, they just say random BS and insult your intelligence. It drives me up a wall. I can't with Tiffany. Kimmy told her basically that don't make no sense. Okay. And if you really wanted a baby, that was your opportunity to talk about it. And Tiffany says, well, I didn't care. Well, I thought Dr. Francis didn't really give a fuck about whether I wanted another baby or not. And so the whole Scooby-Doo crew says to her, look, see, this is a perfect example of how you full of shit. If that's how you felt, why didn't you tell the man that? Why would you just lie and play this go along to get along game and know that you don't care because you think he don't care? Like, so they're telling them that this is a perfect example of how y'all put up a front. Lewis says, well, that's not our intent. And I mean, if we're doing that, let us know that, because, I don't want to come off like that. So let us know that. He was one of those, if Johnny had 5 apples ass students, okay? Because what do you think this is? What do you mean? If I'm coming off like that, somebody tell me. What do you think this is? Do you think you're Caesar and this is your council? What do you think is going on here? They're telling you how you come off. Kimmy says to him, bruh, you have a whole professional and this entire group sitting here telling you how you're coming off. What more do, I can't. I really cannot deal with Tiffany and Lewis. They come off like overage children, and I cannot take them serious. We move on to see Mel going to breakfast with Martell's mama, Miss Marlene. Child, it's about to be a time. Mel says in the confessional that she realizes that people make mistakes and that she is willing to do her part to mend the relationship between herself and her former mother-in-law. So Miss Marlene arrives at the restaurant for them to have breakfast together. They sit down and they greet each other very warmly and politely. Just the sweetest, kindest greetings, just like good Southern ladies do before they sit down and whip ass with their legs crossed. When all that, oh, hey, darling, how you doing? Oh, it's so good to see you. Oh, yeah. Oh, they about to tear each other up. So Mel starts the conversation by addressing the fact that she hasn't talked to Miss Marlene in a very long time. She said, it's been a while since we've been able to communicate with each other, I think since last year sometime. And Miss Marlene said, yeah, since the text. I said, what text? So Mel says in the confessional that last year she felt a way about the comments that Miss Marlene made in a conversation that she had on film with Martell, where she said that in her opinion, Mel was lazy and she thought Mel was going to kill her boy. Mel says that in response to her seeing this conversation, she did what she does, which is block. But before she blocked her, she let her know how she felt. So Mel asked Miss Marlene, she said, do you feel like I've ever said anything negative about you or had any negative feelings towards you? Miss Marlene said, no. It ain't been nothing, just that little text. Mel said, well, do you understand why I sent that text? This is the point at which we get to see the screenshots of the text. And the text messages said, your son is a liar. You have upheld Martell for a very long time and not made him take responsibility. Since day one, been nothing but good to you and fair when it came to you. Y'all enjoy and do what y'all do. Don't text back because I'm blocking you. Girl, who mama phone you text like that? Listen, I understand that Mel says she had feelings and reactions to the conversation that she watched Martell and his mother have, but this is beyond disrespectful. To think that it's okay to go texting this woman like she's your peer because you disagree with her opinion that she expressed in a conversation that she had with her child in her house is crazy to me. Like, how you feel is your business, and you are entitled to your feelings. But when you lack boundaries and respect for boundaries to the degree that you think your feelings give you the right to just go ringing and dinging people's phones and telling them which level of hell they can go to because your feelings are triggered, that might be prescription worthy. That's not okay. So to explain herself and why she reacted this way, Mel tells Miss Marlene that she had to remove herself from anything that ignited negative energy so that she could be good for her kids. And I'm sure you understand that because you were a single mom. Miss Marlene said, yeah, I sure was. That was not removing yourself from anything that ignited negative energy. What that was igniting your negative energy, throwing rocks at somebody and then blocking them so they can't throw no damn rocks back. That's what that was. So Mel proceeds to ask Miss Marlene, why would you make these comments about you thought I was lazy and I was going to kill your boy and I was just going to drive your boy in the ground? Why would you say that? Did Martell ever come to you and say, Mama, I got this wife and she ain't no good. She ain't worth a damn. She don't do shit. She gonna kill me, goddamn. Did he ever come to you and say that? Miss Marlene said, no, girl. Mel said, exactly. Marlene said, I said that. Mel looked shocked. Like, so lady, what? When I tell you this is big, who you thought you was checking energy? Girl, just who did you think you was gonna check? No, he ain't said that. I said that. Miss Marlene said you was spoiled. He had you spoiled. It was Martell this, Martell that. And I did say it. Yes, I said it. I said, Lord, she gonna kill my baby. I said it. Yes, I did. And Mel said, well, I was never lazy. Miss Marlene said, well, I guess when you got them churn, you got lazy. So Mel said, well, you know what? Y'all let the record reflect that Martell did everything and I did nothing. I didn't cook. I didn't clean. I didn't do laundry. I didn't come up with business ideas. Miss Marlene said, well, I didn't say you didn't do nothing now. I didn't say you didn't do nothing. But you got a little comfortable and you got a little lazy. But I guess if I was having them churn like that, I would get lazy too. Mel, please leave the steel magnolia alone. The way that lady was throwing shade, she might as well have just thrown her plate. Miss Marlene, throw the food next time. Honestly, this is a quite hilarious exchange to watch. I think they funny as hell. I also realize that they both really believe what they're saying. They both really stand on their position. Like Miss Marlene ain't coming down off that. She mean that from her heart. And I think what the misalignment is in their understanding is that Mel was a new young wife and mother. And she was adjusting to being a wife and to motherhood. And yeah, while by age and expectation, she might have been an adult, that takes a lot of transitioning. And I think that while Mel was adjusting to being a wife and a mother, I think Miss Marlene had an expectation for performance that wasn't lived up to. In my opinion, when it comes to this particular issue, if you see that there is room for improvement, construct rather than critique. So rather than judging her and resenting her for being lazy, see if there's guidance that you can offer. Is there something that you have learned over the years in terms of being a wife and a mother or running a household that you can offer to this young wife and young mother that will help her in this adjustment? Like maybe have a conversation with her about understanding how difficult it can be to adjust to becoming a mother. And what if she was dealing with postpartum or something of that nature? I think the other part of the issue is that Miss Marlene was a single mother and she raised the kind of man that she would have liked to have the support of. And I think the standard by which she judges Mel is how she would have handled having the kind of support that she saw her son providing in their household. And the thing is, maybe your son did see you struggle as a single mother. And maybe your son decided that maybe he didn't want to see his wife struggle the way that his mother did. And so maybe he did step up. And what's the problem with that? Now, it's not to say that she was this perfect wife and mother. It's not to say that there should be this imbalance in terms of how the household is run and all the duties should fall on one person. But I think there has to be consideration to the individuals that are in the union. And you can have an expectation, but did you do anything to help this person achieve that expectation? So while, you sit back and, oh, she got my son doing this and she got my son doing that, did you ever take the opportunity to go to your daughter-in-law and say, baby, I remember when I had just had my kids, and I know that this is not easy. So let me show you a few things that can help you in the long run. Did you ever do that? Or did you just sit back and think, she gonna kill my boy? So Mel explains to Miss Marlene that both she and Martell were very busy, active people in their marriage, and that they took turns at different periods of their marriage waiting on each other. That's just the way it goes. That's the ebbs and flows. And sometimes I'm doing more for him and sometimes he's doing more for me. Miss Marlene said, no, no, ma'am. I still say he had you spoiled. You were spoiled. You were lazy. I said it. I meant it. I ain't taking it back. That's that. Now, I said that, but it's a new day. It's a new day. Mel looked at her pancakes like she absolutely received that Southern mama shutdown. That's I'm done talking about it. Don't ask me another damn thing. I said it, I meant it. Now what you want? Mel said, you know what? Since we done talking about it, well, you know what? Since it's a new day, Mama Holt, I still got you saved in my phone as Mama Holt. Miss Marlene gave her the most go straight to hell, little girl. Oh, that's so sweet I have ever heard in my life. Since it's a new day, I'm going to go ahead and go right here on my phone and I'm going to unblock you. Miss Marlene said, no, baby, you ain't got to unblock me. Leave me blocked. I said, well, damn. I don't give a damn what kind of block parties you throwing over there in your phone. Leave me on the hell. Make me VIP at the mother. I don't care. Miss Marlene had to remind Mel she ain't one of her little friends. I don't give a damn about your block list, girl. If you're looking for me, come ring my doorbell. Don't unblock me on. I've had a quite peaceful year with you not texting me. No, come ring my doorbell. Mel said, I ain't just pulling up to nobody's door now. That's the whole damn point. Stay over there. And Mel said to Miss Marlene that, she would just like to be able to get back to the place that they were before, which is where she could pick up the phone and call her and they could go out to breakfast, lunch, dinner, just hang out and kick it. And Miss Marlene said, well, we at that place. I ain't got the problem with you. You are my grandkid's mother. I don't have a problem with you. You a sweet girl. If you call me and say, oh, come on, let's go get something to eat with the kids, I'm going to go because you are my grandkid's mother. In other words, I'm not one of your little friends. Miss Marlene is an old school gangster. Yeah, please leave that lady alone. Over the river and through the woods, back to the marriage boot camp cabin we go. Child, Dr. Francis is leading this exercise on total honesty, and he's starting with the couple that needs it the most, Tiffany and Lewis. So Dr. Francis mentions that they have been discussing loss a lot. And that when they discussed it, it really touched on something for Tiffany. And Tiffany says, yeah, it scratched at wounds that I didn't realize were there and I hadn't really thought about in years. And Dr. Francis said, while we're on the subject, has anyone else experienced any losses recently? And both Lewis and Tisha raised their hands to say that they have. And Dr. Francis starts with Lewis by asking him, how did you deal with it when you went through your loss? And Lewis responds by saying, well, it's never easy to take a loss. Dr. Francis said, that ain't what I asked you. I asked you for a feeling and you gave me a philosophy. I'm asking you how it felt, not whether it's easy to deal with, but how did you deal with it? What were your feelings at the time? And Lewis breaks down and says, it hurt and I was sad. I felt alone and I isolated myself. And as he is breaking down and breaking into his vulnerability, he starts to cry. And tears are coming down his face. Dr. Francis comforts him and tells him that he did an amazing job letting go of the philosopher and just being a human in the moment. And as he's having this moment, this very, very emotional moment where he clearly needs support, he leans over into Tiffany's lap because she's sitting right across from him. And maybe it's me again. Maybe it's me. But Tiffany just seemed cold and almost put off by this display of emotion. Like, what do you want? She touches him on the head and she leans in and kisses his cheek and then kind of, lets him go. But everything about this moment screams emotionally vacant. And it made him being in this philosopher mode all the time make sense. It looks almost like there is no place really for either of them to really be authentic or vulnerable in their relationship. So rather than go to that place, we'll just stay in a place of theory rather than reality. So then we move on to Tisha talking about the loss of her college best friend. Now, last week, I had said something did not look right with this scene with Tisha and Marcel, where she was upset about just finding out that her friend had passed away. Well, come to find out, y'all told me in the comments that word on the street is that that's because something was a little bit off. That Tisha did, unfortunately, lose a very close friend. But as I understand it, that loss happened some time before the scene was filmed. Let me say this. I don't want to go too deep into it because it is a very tragic, very sensitive matter that I don't want to just make fodder of or, make it just a part of this storyline discussion, because that is very much real life. I don't want to make that just something we play with or are discussing and tossing around, especially if that is something that was used as a tool of deflection. If that is the case, and they put on this whole scene basically because they want to deflect from talking about their relationship and their reluctance to be there or anything of that nature, that's like low. That's low. And it's very telling of how much you have to hide. Tisha does take this time to express that having lost her good friend, it has changed her perspective on life and love and relationships. It has reminded her to not take people and relationships for granted because tomorrow is not promised. So we move on and we see Miss Marlene at home with Martell helping him with the kids while he is handling business. He says that he is reviewing his inventory production for his wine line because if he launches like right that minute, he was going to sell out of everything. So, he needed to get more inventory. Okay, Sheree. Could you please just proofread the site while you doing all that, while you ordering all the inventory from the grocery store to mark up and resale? Could you please proofread the site? Because it's a bunch of stuff wrong over there. Just while you at it. So Martell's mom sits down to talk. And they start to talk about his relationship with Mel, and Martell tells her that he feels like they're doing a lot better with co-parenting and they're moving in the right direction, he hopes. Well, we know Hope quit his damn job and y'all GPS is broke because we know y'all ain't moving in the right damn direction. But anyway, so Miss Marlene reminds him that, it's all about the kids and whatever you do, you got to have respect. If you don't have respect, you don't have nothing. Don't nobody care what you say or do if you ain't got no respect. Respect to carry you a long way, and it ain't what you do, it's how you do it. Well, Miss Marlene, I'm going to need you to elaborate on that last part for your son, that it ain't what you do, it's how you do it, because I think he misinterpreted that. So this shady sermon leads Miss Marlene right into telling Martell that, I had breakfast with old girl. I really enjoyed myself. We really had a nice time. And we discussed that text. And Martell said he's just surprised that his mama is as cool as she is about the text because he felt like it was the ultimate disrespect. And she said, well, I'm a mother and I'm a woman, and I know how to overlook things. That's what being a woman is about. Miss Marlene, see, you got to grow up and become a woman. You can say you're a woman, but you got to show what kind of woman you are. You got to always stand tall. I said, you know what? Miss Marlene said she gonna keep her foot in your damn neck. But one thing about Miss Marlene, she gonna always wrap her shade up with a nice bow. Miss Marlene said, yeah, I told her she'll always be my grandkid's mom, and so I always love her. I don't have no problem with her. So back at the ranch, Lewis and Tiffany are in their room, awkward and uncomfortable, trying to have a conversation about this whole honesty experience. And Lewis wants to know how Tiffany felt about this moment, about him being vulnerable. And Tiffany responds to him by saying, well, I think you're a tough guy. And, it's just easier to cover things up, and that the root of your feelings and fears comes from, not having the best relationship with your dad when you were growing up. It's just something about her entire demeanor that is just disconnected, that is not invested, that is almost bothered. Tiffany don't like this man. Lewis is in tears as he's explaining that he feels like he has a good relationship with his father, but he can't deny that there is some disconnect because it was a different time that he was raised in. His dad was focused on being a provider more so than anything. And Lewis played sports in school, but his dad rarely ever made it to any of his games. So once he was out of school and he explained to his dad how much he wanted him there, and his dad realized how much it meant as he got into adult sports, his dad made it to as many events as he could. So he knows that his dad loves him. He sees the effort, but this is the root of why Tiffany always being busy and them having time for each other is such a big deal to him. And Tiffany just kind of giggles and is like, for the first time, I really receive your tears, because I don't ever want you to feel that way about me. You would think she's in the room with her coworker. There's something about Tiffany that is cold. She gives me a praying mantis kind of a vibe, like men are only good for what they're good for. And even the men that she claimed to love seem disposable to her. There's just something about old girl ain't right. So we move on and we see Dr. Francis sit down with Tisha and Marcel. And he lets them know that, he's gone easy. He's taken it light on them since they were said to be grieving. But that's over now. So let's get into y'all's bullshit. Marcel talks about how their marriage has been fine and without friction up until the last 3 to 4 years. And they're struggling to adjust to a bunch of outside opinions and input. Tisha said that at the end of the day, she realized that God gave her her husband for a reason. And it is okay to listen to him, to depend on him, to be submissive or obedient or whatever the proper term is. Dr. Francis looked at her like, what? The entire girl, what? Tisha said she had to learn to not listen to outside forces and trust the man that God blessed her with. Let me shut my single ass up, because Dr. Francis is the one with all the education and experience. So Dr. Francis asked her, let me just hold on, time out. Dr. Francis is trying to get clarity on Tisha's submission or obedience or whatever the proper term is to this master God has blessed her with. Dr. Francis said, let me check this out real quick because this looks like an emergency. First of all, this is your decision to submit to this man that you say God has blessed you with, or however you just put it. So Marcel decides, well, let me try to clarify this for Dr. Francis. He explains to Dr. Francis that, listen, while I am the head, I don't make any decisions without her. I consult her on all decisions that I make because I feel like we're better as a team. Dr. Francis said, oh, really? In the most please tone I have. If you don't, shut your ass. Marcel said, yeah, absolutely. I don't make decisions without her, and I don't discount her input. Because if I did discount her input, if I didn't value what she had to offer, I wouldn't have married her. Dr. Francis said, is that right? Like, we just gonna be absolutely foolish today. Okay, all right. At this point, Dr. Francis decides, you know what? I'm not gonna argue with you. I'm just gonna observe how you look when you lie. Dr. Francis said, you know what? Here's the problem most people have. The problem most people have is they want to argue the truth when the truth is what it is. The truth stands on its own. So there's no need to argue the truth. In other words, I ain't going back and forth with you. I'm not doing this. So we move on to Kimmy and Maurice hiding in a corner when Dr. Francis appears like a thief in the therapy night. He done had his fill of Tisha and Marcel's bullshit. And so now I'm here to delve into yours. So when Dr. Francis comes in and sees them eating, he starts joking about where's his plate. And Maurice's Neanderthal basically told the man, go ask your own damn wife. All right? All right? Mine is occupied. But where's your plate? And Kimmy said, well, no, I don't mind at all. If you want a plate, I don't mind. Maurice gave her a good rub on her back and said, no, you won't. You won't fix him a plate. Not while Mrs. Dr. Francis is here. No, you won't. Go ahead and eat your food now. Eat the cake, Anime. Well, since Dr. Francis is here, Maurice decides this is a good time to talk about his request, where he told Kimmy that his reward for coming to this retreat should be that he should get sex 2 times a day while he's here. So he brings it up to Dr. Francis and says, you know, I don't see why it would be a problem for a husband and wife to have sex every day. I don't see why that's an issue. And so I told her that if once a day is the standard, I didn't think there was a problem with, me requesting twice a day while we here on this retreat. And while I'm at it, while I'm laying down the doctrine, on top of having the once a day requirement, neither spouse should be able to tell the other, no, I don't feel like that. That shouldn't be an option. Dr. Francis said, hold on. Before we get too deep into this, let me just make sure that you understand rights and freedoms. You do know that this woman owns herself and she has rights over her own body. Just before we continue, let me just see what kind of crazy I'm dealing with. You do know that she's your partner and not your property. Do you know that before we continue? And Maurice says, yeah, I understand that. So Dr. Francis asked Kimmy, do you have rights over your body? Do you have the right to say no? Because I don't understand the whole nobody should have the right to say no part. So do you have the right to say no? And Kimmy says, no, I absolutely have the right to say no. And he understands that I have autonomy over my own body. He gets that I have rights over myself. However, the issue is not every day. The issue is all the other I got to do every day. And I am married to a Neanderthal of a man who believes that all domestic duties are the woman's responsibility. So he wants me to be laying it down and picking it up 2 and 3 times a day, and he won't lay it down and pick it up in the kitchen with a broom or in the dishwasher or nowhere else. And so I cannot run my life, my businesses, my household, and be playing freaky Flintstone games with him. I can't do all of it. And I done told him to get his ass up and help me, but he doesn't think that that's his responsibility. He thinks it's only the responsibility of a woman to do domestic duties, and I'm the only woman in a house full of men. So if I'm always doing domestic duties, how you think you're supposed to get the booty? You can't be in sexual overdrive all the time and have a bad transmission when it comes to doing the dishes. Like, man, please go to hell. And the episode comes to an end with Dr. Francis telling him that this is basic input-output. You're going to have to put more into helping her if you want more out of humping her, okay? If you get busy around the house, y'all get busy in the room. Grow up. Like, Maurice is the worst kind of man to be married to. He is unbearably selfish. And Kimmy comes across like she's afraid to be perceived by him as a nag. Like, I don't know if he has complained about his last marriage, but Kimmy You can almost always see that Kimmy has something to say that she's just not saying, that she's always just kind of holding herself back. And so I wonder if she does that, not just because it's her husband, but because there is some concern about being perceived as a nag. I don't know what in the Celie and Mr. relationship dynamic they got going on, but that's it. That's all, and I ain't got no more. Thank you so much for coming down here, listening to me, and let me get this off my chest. As always, please be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe if you have not already. And in the meantime, until next time, just like every time, I love you and I mean it. Bye.